Hey guys, Strider here, bringing you the latest and greatest with Pokemon Masters X. Today I wanted to start talking about something that I've seen a lot of newer players struggling with, and so I thought I could make a video making some tips and tricks of how to help, and also a guide of my thoughts and my experiences on this. And I am talking about Champion Stadium. That's right. This is week 5 of Champion Stadium, but I do see people constantly struggling to clear the very hard levels. So I'm going to put together my thoughts on what you should not do and what you should do, and kind of get you started. I'm also planning on making a complete walkthrough for each of these stages here. Lorelei, Bruno, Agatha, and Lance, and Blue, using minimally invested free-to-play units that you can get just from doing the story. So you can take this guide, this video here, and if you can use it as a standalone to help you get started on your own, or if you would like kind of just a complete walkthrough of how to do the stadium, then stay tuned to this whole series that I'm going to be releasing this week. Alright, so without further ado, let's jump in. This is Strider's Champion Stadium Tips and Tricks Starter Walkthrough. Alright, the first thing I want to start off with is what I see a lot of people doing that you should not do when you are starting Champion Stadium. And that is, the first thing is bringing underleveled units. A lot of people are just getting started, like I said. They ask for advice on certain social media sites, and they say, okay, who should I bring? They get some advice, and they bring those people, and they have they have not invested or not leveled up those units, and boom, they don't make it very far. So yeah, not having leveled up units is not going to help you at all, right? What else should we not do? Alright, so that's the first thing. Make sure that you level up your units to at least level 120, I would say. You can look at the recommended level. It says 125, but you should be able to have no problems if you get up to the max level of 120. I know that it's not easy to get the mats to do that, and even harder to get the books and stuff to get up to level 125. There's not much of a difference from 120 to 125 anyway. So 120 should be suffice, but anything really lower than 100 or 110 even is not going to get you by Champion Stadium. You're going to get popped too easily. The second thing that you should not do, I see a lot of people doing optimize. Optimize is okay if you have the max units and everything like that. You might make it a little bit farther, but you might end up with, units that are not the best or the greatest units that are going to get you anywhere, right? So you might get up like a team with all strikers, and you're not going to have any supports, you're not going to have any potions, and you're still going to get popped. So yeah, optimize is a good starting place, but don't use the optimized team. Another thing that people do is they set their teams, and they're ready to go, and then they just push auto. So optimize or auto, any of the automizations is not really going to be your best bet. We're going to talk about how you should run the stages a little bit later. But you really, if you haven't figured it out by now, you need to be queuing up your moves and getting off those sync attacks. Your sync attack will give your whole team a 50% increase in damage output every time you sync, right? So if you're just getting, when you auto, you do 1 for 1 per move, and so you only get off a few moves. Is just too good. He's kind of unkillable, to be honest. But most teams just go down really quick when you auto. But if you are on manual and you are on the lowest speed, then you should have no problem getting in 3 moves for every one of the enemy's move, right? So when you are starting, make sure that you turn off the auto here, and make sure that you don't have it on the fastest speed either, because that's going to be pretty hard. What you want to do is you want to fit in 3 moves for every one time that the team is going, because see, I have 3 moves queued up, and they just got 1 move in. If you can get 3 moves in between each one of your enemy's move, then you're gonna get your sync attack ready to go after like the enemy hasn't even gone around 1 turn, and they have a less of a sync down countdown, so that's one thing they have an advantage. So to get more of an even playing field, you need to be fitting in 3 moves every time the enemy has 1. It's really hard to do that if you're on the fastest speed here, and it's impossible to do that if you're on auto, right? So that's another thing that you should not do. Do not use underlevel units, number 1. Do not use the optimize feature, number 2. Do not use the auto feature. And this goes for most of the difficult content, Battle Villa and Legendary Arena as well. There are a few other things that I recommend, even if you are aware of all these tips, not optimizing, you've maxed out your units, and you are queuing up the recommended turns each time, right? That Champion Stadium, especially more than even Battle Villa or Legendary Arena, requires a lot of planning. So don't just say, "Oh, I don't like Lance. I'm gonna go attack Lance and kill him, and then I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do for there," because you might get through Lance, you might get through Bruno, you might get through Agatha, and then you're at Lorelei, and all of your good units are gone, or all the units that would have been good against her are gone, and you're screwed. One thing about Champion Stadium that is unlike Battle Villa and unlike Legendary Arena, unlike Battle Villa, you can't carry the same units over to multiple teams. You can only use 1 set of units per stage. Once you use a set of unit on that stage, it's gone. So if I use this team to take down Lorelei, then I would not be able to use Cynthia, Clement, or Acerola on any other stage. Let's say a good example of how this can kind of bite you in the butt is maybe you don't have any strong. Let's go back over here. Maybe you don't have any strong psychic types, or maybe you don't have any strong ghost types, and you decide to use Mewtwo to take down Bruno, and that's great. But Mewtwo is also a very good ghost attacker, so you might have been able to use him. Maybe you have Sabrina or Caitlyn that could take down Bruno. And so instead of using Mewtwo on Bruno, you could have used him to take down Agatha, or vice versa. Maybe you were using Mewtwo to take down Agatha, and you don't have any strong psychic attackers, so now you have nobody for Bruno. So one of the big things about Battle Villa, about Champion Stadium that's different, is that you really need to plan your whole run before you even get started, before you take 1 stage. Because unlike Battle Villa, you can't use the same sync pairs over multiple stages, and unlike the Legendary Arena, you can't reset your progress and start again, right? So this whole guide, if you don't get anything out of it, is that make sure that you plan everything that you're going to do, all your teams, and in what order before you start. All right? Another thing that you should not feel stuck doing is feeling like you have to, maybe I'll just use the optimize feature, feeling like you have to stay with super effective teams, right? What is Lesman even doing on there? Let's look. So this week Lance is weak against Steel. You don't have a lot of options with Steel. Yeah, if you have OG Steven, then you are good to go. But if your best Steel type is, I mean, even Solgaleo is good to go, but a lot of newer players will not have him because he was, and they won't have Steven either. Those were limited units that are no longer in the pool. So a lot of people, their only option for Steel types is Thornton and or
According to my data interpreting machine.
And if you try to run a team with Thornton or Wickstrom as your main attacker, you're not gonna go very far against Lance on this stage at all. Trust me. So I don't know. I'll just put somebody on here.
Yo, I'll come along.
You're gonna get taken out. So number 5 on the list of what not to do is don't feel stuck thinking that you have to use super effective pairs against that stage. Yeah, it does help to have that double effect, but if your unit that's super effective is like only putting out 45 on their best attack, they're more of a striker, a tech or a support, then that double power is not going to do much as a non-super effective unit that can put out over 100 base power anyway. Like, blue is a great special attacker that you might use on the stage. The regular blue with Pidgeot, Mega Pidgeot. So he's somebody that can take down the stage with the right support even better than Wickstrom or Thornton. So yeah, don't feel like you have to use a super effective pair against the stage. If you don't have any good super effective units, then just use one of your best strikers, and we're going to get into that in a second. And finally, let's see who I can do this with. Okay, let's do Bruno. Finally, the last advice is don't feel like you have to. Don't take out the middle boss first. In most cases, right?
Let's go.
I see a lot of people saying take down the center. Who do I take out first? The game advises you to take out.
Do it.
The game advises you to take out the sides first, and there's a reason for that, right? I didn't bring any supports here. Once you take out the main attacker, then you're kind of in for a world of hurt because
Here's my chance.
because the sides are just going to start wailing on you. They go pretty wild, and you have nothing you can do about it. They'll just take you out with their earthquakes or whatever after 2 seconds, and then you're done, right? So make sure that you are listening to the game's advice. They have the advice there for a reason, right? So again, this is just I'm just showing you all what to do, what not to do, right? So if maybe I can say this through. If I take down the side, if I take down Machamp, you'll watch what happens, and then you can see even if I kill him, I get that fun.
Here's my chance.
Alright, so
I didn't do enough research.
So say you're able to go down the center, and you're able to take out the middle. Watch what happens to the sides here. Earthquake, bam! These guys are gonna spam AOE moves, left and right, rock slide, bam! And you're not gonna be able to do anything. Yeah, so don't. In most cases, you don't want to take out the center if you're using free-to-play units and you're not that experienced, right? Okay. I don't need tips. Okay, so now that we know what not to do, don't auto, don't optimize, don't use underlevel pairs, don't go in without a plan, don't feel stuck using super effective units, and don't take out the center first. All right? So what should you do? Just to reiterate, number 1 with a bullet is plan. You need to know what you're going to do. You need to have a plan. And a lot of that plan should also go into what units you particularly have, at what level, how much investment you can put into those units, and also these parameters. If you click on the bottom here, you can see it says round 1. The gimmick with Champion Stadium is that the parameters change each week, obviously with the bosses, but also each round. So if right now, I'm on round 1. I haven't cleared anything. The boss hints say that the sync move countdowns are going to be reduced by half. I need to think about what units I have that will work well with reduced sync, and I need to think about also the enemy, what enemy might not be good to go against with reduced sync. For example, Agatha, if she has a reduced sync, she's going to go into Mega Gengar real quick and just start spamming Shadow Ball and kill your team, right? So you want to make sure that you're thinking about that. There are 4 different rounds, so you want to look through these parameters and you want to figure out who you have that works best with what parameter against which of the elite floor. And you should also be thinking about when you go to blue, you get physical, there's always one, but you get to choose one of the 4 previous parameters as well. So you use 2 parameters against blue, one that's set, the physical damage one, and one that is of your choosing that you had used in a round before. So think about that. Now that you thought about who you want to use against what round with what parameter, you should start to build your team, right? You should figure out what team you have. So the next step would be to know your units, right? So by that, what do I mean? I mean, go into your units and take a look at them, right? Let's go by sync move. Did you know that Whitney is a little bit of a sync nuke, right? She gets double power on a 300 base sync attack if she is if she's syncing against a paralyzed enemy, and she has a good chance to make the enemy flinch with Stomp, which will stop their attacks, and she also is able to paralyze the enemy, a moderate chance of paralyzing the enemy with her body slam. So she can paralyze and sync nuke, right? Also, you can see some units that can restore HP. Taking care of your health is very important. So if you're going down and you have a unit that can, buff back up their own HP and buff their own defense, like Whitney, and their speed, she's actually a really viable free to play. You get her like right at the beginning unit there. Look at their she can boost her own strength just through passives. Yeah, Whitney is definitely a unit that maybe a lot of people are sleeping on, right? Again, Misty is a free to play unit that we'll look in, and she is a mini sync nuke even without a grid, right? So she can buff her own special defense, and her sync attack is doubled based on how much her special defense is raised. So she's wonderful against water weak stages. If you don't have a water striker, you can use Misty as a sync nuke. There's just a lot of other units that you might be not aware of what they do, right? What's his name? Sophocles can paralyze 100%, right? So he's like Erica. Erica can do that. Sophocles can do that. Some good units here. Surge is also, he's wonderful. He can lower the enemy's special attack. If you're going up against Agatha or Lorelei and they're spamming special attacks, then you're going to want to lower their attack. That's the same as raising your defense. So he can do that sharply lower. So he lowers it 2 stages every time he uses an Eerie Impulse. You use that 3 times, your main opponent is at -6 special attack. And he has the last word, so even if something goes wrong, he blows up. He can take some damage. He can take some enemies down with him. And the physical version of that is she's all the way on the bottom with Fairy. Mina, where's Mina? Mina gets Charm. So she does what Surge does, but on the physical level. So if you're going against Bruno, he's just slamming you with close combats and earthquakes and stuff like that, you want to use Charm. Charm can take him down to -6, and his attacks will do virtually nothing against your enemies. So don't sleep on some of these easier to find units. One more comes to mind. I like to use Winona. A lot of units benefit from range, sure, but she does too. She gets racing range, so she can boost her own speed with her TM, and she can get a passive speed boost, and also her air slash has a moderate chance to flinch. Moderate isn't bad, that's like 30%. I'll take that, you know, in a longer battle. That can also make or break a battle. So take a look, get to know your units. Just because you don't have all the gotcha banner units, the 5-star units, doesn't mean you don't have anything to work with. So look through who you have, get to know them, study, look and discover, go through their, like what we're doing right now, and figure out what their passives are, what their TMs do. You know, Hapu, yeah, a lot of people laugh about Hapu, but lowering accuracy against a Pidgeot, and then he's trying to spam Hurricane and he's missing all the time, and you have your defense raised so you can tank those air cutters or whatever, then you know that's something that you can look at. All right, so get to know your units. That's number 2, and kind of in line with that, max out the units that you want to use. Again, you don't want to go in again with 100 with underlevel units. The next step is to think of team synergy. You saw that when I was going against Bruno, I kind of struggled. Mew went down, and then Tate went down, right? And I've invested in these pairs, and they're pretty tanky, to be honest, but they were still taking a beating, right? So this is not the ideal comp. You don't really want to run double strikers or tech units. When you're starting off, you want to run a general rule of thumb is you want to run 1 striker and 2 supports, right? So you can, if you don't know what they are, you can go in here and you can filter and you can figure out, okay, these are my strikers. You can arrange them by type if you want to, or by level, and find out your supports. There aren't many supports, but some of them you might not have known that they were supports. Supports have the benefit of raising the stats of all the units. So Marlin right here, he can, if you're going against somebody who's using physical attacks, he can add your defense, and he can endure, right? So he might be a tank in a pinch, and he can definitely boost your support. So you're running this team, look for supports and look for team synergy too. If I'm using Giovanni as my main striker, all his attacks, you can see here like the little
Team Rocket
whirly thing, that means that he's a special attacker. If I go back to Tate is not, you can see the role is he's a physical striker. So his attacks are physical. They look like a little kind of star burst or something like that, right? You can take a look and figure out what role, are they special strikers or physical strikers, and then build your supports to support them and cover their weaknesses. Again, Giovanni can boost his evasiveness and his critical hit rates, which is great. You want crit support on this team. A lot of the enemies will boost their defense, and crit can go through that boost and have no problems, right? But he cannot boost his own special attack, which he would help him increase his output damage, right? So I would not, let's say, pair him with somebody like Phoebe, because Phoebe is going to boost his critical hit rate, which Mewtwo already does himself. And Phoebe also boosts attack, physical attack. If it just says attack, that's physical attack. Mewtwo doesn't use physical moves, so that attack boost is doing nothing for his damage output. I want somebody that can boost special attack for Mewtwo. So, you know, somebody like Rotom can do that, but she also boosts critical hit rate. A really good unit to use with Mewtwo, oops, not Skyla. Skyla boosts speed and defense, so she's good for anybody pretty much. Anybody can always use speed and defense for the most part. But Roxanne's study buddies increase special attack and speed, and then her other attack is defense, right? So if I'm putting Roxanne on a team with Mewtwo, bam, that's a deadly combination. So now Mewtwo can boost his own evasiveness and crit. He's already got a decent amount of, I guess not special defense, but we're going against a physical attack, so his special defense doesn't matter if I'm doing Bruno. So getting this defense and the speed and special attack from Roxanne covers everything that he needs. It doesn't really matter who I put in the other team. You want to have basically a striker, a support, and maybe a healer. So I could put Misty on here because Misty would cover his special defense, which Roxanne doesn't boost. And she also can give him more evasiveness, which is always welcome, and have him heal himself. Although her heal is like a regen, so it's like 6% over 8 turns, which is a little bit like chip healing. So you wanted, maybe if you wanted more of a potion user, you can get Skyla, obviously. She's like your go-to. Or Sabrina, her TM works as a potion and boosts special attack and accuracy. Who else? Brawly, he's a tech. Some of the tech units have potions. So take a look and see who does. Like, where is he? There he is. Brock is a potion user. Pikachu, your main character, Pikachu, who's a striker. He's one of the you get a free grid with him. He's like one of the best potion users because he gets Master Healer. So he's welcome. Anybody that can heal with a potion is welcome on any team, to be honest, right? So there you go. Think about your teams, look at their weaknesses, see how they can cover each other, and then you have your team set up, okay? So now that you know your teams and how to build teams and what units you have, what should we do next, right? Okay, the last thing that you should do before we move on is you should know your weaknesses. Look at the area details, right? So let's say this is the team I want to use against Bruno. Everything looks great, right? They're covering their own weaknesses. I've got them max level. What could go wrong? Let's take a look. Well, let's just go and see. All right, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna use the moves. We're gonna buff each other, and we're gonna fit in 3 moves in between each one. We're gonna slow it down so we can do that, and we're going to just take him out in 2 seconds. This will be easy, buddy. We're gonna go to the side too, so that we don't get spammed with the earthquake.
Got this.
All right, so boom! Oh my! Whoa! What just happened there? Oh, let's take a look. You see this little blinking thing above Roxanne with the kind of warning sign? That means that she is weak to this stage, or one move that one of the enemies has on this stage, right? So she's not the best tank. She didn't even get finished buffing Mewtwo before she got dropped like a bad habit. So how do I know what to use? Before you start the stage, you click on this little area details, top corner here, up in the top here, and you can figure out the recommendations, like focus on paralyzing him. But if you go over to boss details, you can see what they're weak against. So I have a unit here, Mewtwo's glowing, and it shows that I can use these attacks and they're going to be doubly weak to them. But if I do this little here, the switch over, it shows what attack types they have and who I'm weak to. Roxanne is weak to fighting, and Machamp spams fighting moves. So that is not a good combination. If your main tank is weak to their main enemy's main attack move, that's a big warning sign. So make sure that you do pay attention to that and build your teams around that as well. Okay? The last thing to do is to look at the battle parameters. And this should be done while you're, maybe even before you make your team comps. But I just wanted to make sure that you know what units you have that are viable. And then look at this is usually the first thing I do when I get to a champion stadium, is look at the special parameters. First one, use the sync moves quickly. That means it's like a truncated countdown. Normally it takes you 9 moves, but with this one it's going to take you 5 moves to get down there. So the next one is you want to use status conditions: flinch, poison, confuse, paralyze, burn, and they're going to be easier to inflict the enemy and last longer and do more damage. So that can be very helpful. But look down here. If you don't plan, if you just go one by one, then you're going to get down here and you can see number 3 says make use of special damage reductions to battle opponents with high special attack. All right. And the next one after that's kind of the opposite. Use special attacks against opponents with low special defense. So now that I know that the last 2 rounds are talking about special attacks, what does that mean to me? Well, Pokemon Masters, a rule of thumb is that if the enemy is using mostly physical attacks, then they're going to have a lower special defense. And vice versa, if they're spamming high special attacks, they're going to have a low physical defense. So you need to plan your strikers around that, right? Bruno uses pretty much only special attacks, right? He's a special attacker. And Lance uses mixed, but his main attacks mostly are sorry, did I say special? Bruno is only physical, right? And Lance is physical, right? So if I'm going against Bruno round 3, I'm going to bring a special attacker. What am I doing? If I'm going against Bruno round 3, I'm lowering special damage. And these parameters work for both the enemy and for yourself. So I'm lowering my own damage because I'm bringing Mewtwo as a special attacker. And I'm not doing anything to lower his damage because he's using physical attacks. So I'm just making the battle harder on myself because I'm not paying attention and I didn't plan for parameters. You want to use the special damage reduction against units that use special attacks, like Lorelei spams mostly special attacks, and Agatha, right? So I'll bring physical strikers to attack them. That parameter for round 3, lower special damage, so their damage output's going to be hindered while my... And so for round 4, I'm going to want to use the opposite. I'm going to want to go against a physical attacker and use my special attackers to get the boost, because their attacks are not going to be boosted, my attacks will be. So let's see what we have here. Now that we know that for round 3, we want to go against either Lorelei or Agatha, and round 4, we want to go against Bruno or Lance. That kind of now gives us more of an idea of what we want to do when we go into the next rounds, right? So round 2 is using status conditions, and round 1 is using opponents with... Oh no, round 2 is using status conditions, round 1 is using the truncated sync. What does that mean for me? Well, if I look at the area details, I can see that Lorelei wants me to lower her speed and use paralysis. That might be a good time to use the status conditions against her, right? And maybe if I go in against Lance, maybe I do have what's his face? Steven, right? Maybe I do have Steven and I want to use him, right, against Lance. Well, round 1 would be a great time to do that because he goes to Mega. And the faster I can get to Mega, look at that damage increase. That goes up by almost 100, right? So, and my defense pops up too, which will help with my survivability, right? So any unit that can Mega is probably a good time to use this truncated sync. Another one's good for are sync nukes, like How and Plumeria can be sync nukes, right? But maybe not Mew. If you do Mew, you might need somebody else to boost him because he needs a little bit more of a setup. So if you're just going into a sync nuke after the second turn, you might not have him fully maxed out to have him set up for a sync nuke capability. So pay attention to that. So there you go. We have our crash course in team building. Again, pay attention because stats do matter. So let's say instead of Roxanne, we can still bring Roxanne here, but instead of making her the top support, let's switch and we can put Misty there. And she's not weak to physical attacks. I mean, to fighting attacks, so she would survive. Another thing we can do is I need to look for supports. Here we go. Let's look at Cheryl. Cheryl's a good example of how stats can be important, right? Her defense, 67, is really bad. That's like paper. But look at her special defense. It's 200, over 200. That's amazing. So if you're going to use Cheryl as a support, and she can use like potions and boost defense and special defense. Cheryl is an amazing support, but if you bring her against Lance or Bruno, she's going to fold to their sink, and then you're gone. But if you bring her against a strong special attacker like Lorelei or Agatha, she can actually be a great tank against these stages and survive long. So pay attention to stats and look at these units and see if they're physical attackers, special attackers, and plan your teams accordingly. Alright, if you have gridded units, then use them because gauge is going to be important too. Let's say I want to go against Lance and I'm going to use Lance and I'm going to use steel types. If I'm using actually Solgali is not bad. Janine as a tank, and I pair her with Steven, their speed is pretty low. Janine's speed is 144. Anything under 200 is a slow team. And if you're trying to use like Iron Tail or even Gyro Ball and you don't have her gridded, you're not going to be able to get those turns off. And if you have many slow units on your team, you're not maintaining gauge, you don't have a good team comp. You need to make sure that you have teams that have that can boost their own speed, that are gridded and have move gauge refresh, which is, it means that the move will refresh every now and then. You can look at Lance, I have him gridded. He's got Iron Head move grade refresh 3, which is a 30% chance to get an extra bar of gauge every time he uses that move. So that can help with gauge maintenance. Skyla is a great unit, not only because she boosts attack, but also she boosts speed for the whole team, and that affects how quickly the gauge regenerates. Plumeria is one of my favorites because she's really fast. So if you pop her on a team with Skyla, then you're gonna have gauge for ages. Plumeria, look at her speed is 400, right? So let's put Skyla. Let's just look at that. Skyla on a team.
On me. Ready for takeoff.
Plumeria and another fast unit is Signasuit Grims. He's really fast, especially when he can go to Mega Sharpedo. If you don't have units gridded, you want to have a speed buffer, and you want to have somebody that can, and you want to have at least one fast unit to keep the gauge refreshing. You'll notice a difference, right? So look at the gauge here. I'm going to use Skyla's. Skyla's great too because she has move gauge refresh. So look, so now that she's at full speed, Skyla can get them to full speed too. Oh, this is the thing. Now, which is good one to use Grims on because he can mega anyway, right? And when he goes mega, his speed goes through the roof as well. So just because I have two strikers on here, doesn't mean that I'm gonna be stuck for gauge because Skyla's boosted their whole speed. And now I'm able to spam nukes as it's like infinite gauge. So pay attention to that. Look how quickly the gauge is coming back. Now I can spam 2 3-bar moves here and always have full gauge. Okay. I could probably even fit in Skyla's 2-bar each time and have no problems with gauge. Okay? So that's one thing that you want to take a look at. Let's look at comparison. What happens if you put a team of all slow units on there, right? Speed is important for non-gridded units. If you have grid, like Iris can boost her own speed. She has low speed, but she can boost her own speed, and she has double move gauge refresh, so she shouldn't have problems with gauge. These are just things that you need to pay attention. This is becoming more of a crash course on how to do everything in Pokemon Go Masters, right? But let's see how this works with gauge.
Go for it.
Look at that gauge. Look at how slow it's crawling. I can't even and I have no way to boost my own speed, right? So this, if I'm using this team, I'm gonna be, you know, after I finish all my buffs, I'm in trouble, right?
Now is my opportunity.
So make sure that you're paying attention to that as well. That does make a big difference. Gauge maintenance, team synergy, gauge maintenance. These are things that you need to learn when you're playing this game, okay? This is for any content. All right. So now that you know the do's and don'ts for Champion Stadium, you know, it's time for you got to look at your own sync pairs and start brainstorming. I recommend that you get a pen and write down some team comps, you know, when you're going to go against which enemy, with which parameters, and with who. And even make up some backup teams in case that doesn't work. And that should include blue as well. Don't forget that you have to do blue at the end. So if you use all your potion users and your buffers and your supports, and you get to blue without anybody, you might have some trouble. So think about everything before you do anything. All right? And don't just give up after one turn. That's another thing too. If you try a team and it doesn't work, try it again. Because Champion Stadium is randomized. The enemy attacks are randomized. So you might have gone against Lance and that Aerodactyl was spamming Iron Head and just took your team out real quick. And then you go in again and he's using like Rock Throw or Rock Tomb or whatever, and you're able to get off a lot more hits. Maybe you had bad luck against Agatha when you were trying to, you know, flinch her or burn her for Chantel to get advantage of the Hex boost. But you run it again and you burn each time or flinch each time. You know, just run it again. I'd say you should know whether the team comp you have compiled for a certain stage is going to work or not after about a dozen runs. Give yourself some time to see if you're going to get lucky and if you're going to get close. If you're not getting close, then yeah, go back to the drawing board. Okay? But the bottom line of this long intro video is that you should not start a single stage until you have planned and mapped out each team for everything, including the order and the parameters of who you're going to go. Now, if you still don't think that you can do that on your own, don't worry, because in my next video, we're going to walk through our first stage, and I'll go through the whole stage one by one. So you can follow with me using the teams that are free to play with minimal investment, and you should be able to clear. All right? I hope you have a good day. That's it for me. See you on the next side.